r/AskReddit. Serious. People who could see but went blind, what's it like? Is it like being in perpetual darkness or something else? Oh, I can answer this. I had some neurological issues when I was younger. Once or twice this resulted in a brief but total loss of vision because my brain stopped processing the input from my eyes or something along those lines. It's nothing. You don't see darkness. It's just nothing. Best way to describe it would be like you're trying to see out of your kneecap. There's nothing to see because your kneecap isn't sending information about a sight to your brain. Or it's like asking you to tell me how I look in the infrared spectrum right now. There are no real words to describe the sensation of lacking a sensation because it's an oxymoron. Keep in mind too that there's a different kind of blindness. What I described is probably similar to the experiences of people who were born blind because of issues with their nervous system. Other people can go blind due to degeneration of the mechanics of the eye itself, which I'd bet is much different. Man, that is really hard to process. Like it hurts my brain trying to imagine what that is like. Yeah, it was weird because I could still feel my eyes. Like I knew I was blinking, I could feel them burn a little when I touched them. But the actual vision is just a total blank spot. But someone legally blind, not going blind. I have several friends who are going blind, and they seem to fall into two camps. 1. Their brain tries to fill in the blanks in their blind spots, and it's just a lightly blurred section that they know not to trust. 2. It's just blank, as if nothing is there, light or dark. They can't perceive anything particular there, as it's beyond their ability to see anything there. I have a blind spot no one can seem to figure out, and it's a lot like number 1. Blurry, sometimes purplish gray when I move my eyes quickly, but my brain subs in some info and calls it good. Lol. I can't read whatever word is in that spot. The spot is very tiny, the size of a 3-letter word in the Reddit mobile app on my phone held about a foot away from my face, but otherwise I'm fine, can drive, etc. I imagine a larger one, or more of them, would be quite troublesome, but at least you can still see a bit. I've posted this story a few times on Reddit, so if it sounds familiar you might have seen one of my earlier threads. My dog bit off my cornea once. I was sitting on the floor playing fetch with a hat. I decided we were done and put the hat on my head to stand up. He wasn't done fetching yet and judged for the hat. I leaned back. He missed the hat and grabbed my left eyeball. His teeth raked across the surface of my eye and tore the cornea off in a big shred. At first, I was in shock and felt like something big was stuck in my eye. I couldn't even close it properly, so in a panic I rushed to the kitchen to wash water through it, thinking I had dog hair in my eye. Yes, it hurt, but the adrenaline was high. Once the water hit my eye I could feel the tatters of the cornea tear off. At that point, the pain went to 10. I screamed until I vomited, then blacked out. Woke up and vomited again, and screamed all the way to the ER where they gave me painkillers. By far the worst pain I've ever experienced. The mind-shattering relentless pain. Like a toothache where it's so deep in your head, everything is a pain, but so much more razor-sharp compared to a toothache. Incoherent pain. I would argue you couldn't even use it for torture because it makes you mindless. So to the point of the thread. My bad, I was so sensitive that I couldn't just cover the one and use the other. The pressure from the muscles and moving it with the other caused far too much pain. So I wrapped my whole head and went blind for the month or 3 it took for the eye to heal. I lived like a blind person for that time. The hardest thing to get used to was eating. I couldn't figure out how to get food onto the fork, and it was disorienting to try to put the fork in my mouth. Even though you don't look at your food before taking a bite, you still subconsciously orient yourself, so that took some time to develop. I listened to a lot of movies I had already seen. Most days were spent just laying on the couch listening to old movies and seeing them in my head, which was really cool because I noticed so much different stuff. My absolute favorite was Big Fish because of how fanciful it was. It really made imagining it a lot of fun. As my eye healed, the pain let up and I could go with my head unwrapped. Then eventually I could open it without hurting. It was like looking through the wax paper, everything was just white. Then it cleared out and I could see clearly, but there was a disparity between my eyes, like my brain had forgotten how to line up the images and my depth perception was totally fucked. I actually got motion sick several times, and I remember taking walks around the block just for the practice of getting used to seeing again. The vision came back just fine, 2020, and good as new. For several years the cornea wasn't attached very well, and if my eye dried out at night I would tear it again when I opened my eyes. That would be another day or two in agony pain. Eventually, that stopped happening too. I am legally blind in my left eye. It is a problem with how my eyes lined up as a kid, and my brain decided to ignore my left eye. I wore a patch off and on as a kid and had a vision as good as 20/60 before it progressively got worse. I honestly hardly notice it. I had a pretty distinguished career in the military despite it, including shooting Top Gun often. I always felt bad because I could never do drills some people could, such as shooting with the non-dominant hand, at least without some awkward head lean, I suppose. Given that it is one eye, I just experienced the world crystal clear with my right eye. When I got metal in that eye, I drove to the hospital, and it was incredibly brutal. I could see the red of light, but couldn't really gauge distance. My brain ignores my right eye when they're both open. I have a very wide alignment problem, prism defect. I'm so left eye dominant that I should have learned to shoot rifles and archery left hand. Instead, I have to close my left eye and really concentrate on my right. I know you're supposed to keep both eyes open, but my view is across the barrel trying to use both eyes. My left eye takes over and the right isn't even there. With my left eye closed, I can navigate and see okay with my right, but I have a hard time reading. It's like my central vision doesn't exist. I'll get glimmers of the beginnings and ends of long words but miss the middle. I can't transcribe numbers or random code sequences for shit with my right eye. It's wired. I tell my optometrist when he checks my right eye alone. Yep, that looks sharp, actually 20/30, not bad. Nope, have no idea what that says. E. Something something something. P. No, number 2 doesn't look better than number 1. You can't fix this. Also, my eyes see slightly different colors. If I switch back and forth looking at the sky, the left is bluer. The right has a greenish cast. And lastly, while generally shit otherwise, the peripheral processing speed of my right is very high. I can see the individual red, green, and blue coming from a rotary wheel projector, used for office meetings. I can glance sideways at a car going 75 miles per hour on the interstate and tell you how many spokes are on the wheels. If I glance about, it's like I get a momentary freeze frame with my right eye, only. Was pretty normally sighted, some mild issues but nothing near blindness, until I was 15, 22 now. Have lost my vision both gradually and in huge increments, if that makes sense. In one eye, I'm nearly totally blind and can only really perceive light and dark and very bright colors. But this disappears pretty quickly in bright light, which is incredibly painful, and my night vision is useless. What you may find more interesting is that I started off by losing my central vision. In essence, I had a huge blind spot that I didn't really notice. My brain just filled in the information to make me think that I could see. This may be confusing. As an example, I lost a bottle of nail polish and was trying to find it. I spent a while trying to find it with my vision. This was when it was better. Now I could never do this visually, and couldn't. My mother came in, it was right in front of me. Most of the time, this eye just has a total lack of information except light or dark. Like, if you turn a light on in the room, I can tell, but I just can't make out anything in the room. In the other, I am still way beyond legally blind, 20/CF1 if that means anything to anyone. Basically I can count the fingers on your hand if it's 1 foot away, but can't see other than that, and have a significant central loss. I can see a tiny bit peripherally, so sometimes if I'm walking with someone and they're on my right side I can sort of make them out. The way I describe my vision overall is that I can see light, dark, and very bright colors. Sometimes general shapes. I really can't imagine what other people see. How my vision was always a bit off, but I've now been mostly blind so long I don't have much concept of it. I'm a college student and I was amazed a few years back when one of my friends commented that my professors kept books in their offices. Of course, they do. That makes sense, but I had never realized. Someone I know who went totally blind overnight said that it was like gray, and when they walked into the light, it was a shinier gray. I'm now at a point with my vision loss where it's frustrating, but the real issue is other people not understanding that I'm a fully capable individual. People speak to me like I'm a child on a daily basis and it's infuriating. TL, doctor. You can be mostly blind and not realize it? Your brain fills stuff in. When I can't see at all, very bright light, or at night, it's quite nothing but just a lack of information. I guess it's like what you see in a dreamless sleep.